in this fifth session of week 9, we will talk about specifically what transformation that Joseonjok people made to this Xinjiang-style barbecue lamb skewers to make it so popular in China and particularly in South Korea and elsewhere. So first, what they did was they brought this street food to restaurant food. And now that was possible because they had some capital compared to the Uyghur street peddlers. And this capital came from their working in South Korea. So Joseonjok people already had some capital, and they collected this capital, and many of them could open a restaurant. And this was quite suitable because, especially in winter, eating outside is painful in Manchuria because it's so cold, unlike in Xinjiang. And that's why bring it into a restaurant was first move. And unlike Uyghur people, as I mentioned, they served this meat with beer. So that was really great combination. And probably this was like related to chimek or something that later invented in South Korea. So in this case, the beer and lamb. And they made the meat size much smaller so that women can eat easily and children can eat easily. Now, they did something horrible against the Uyghur tradition. Instead of using lamb fat between the lamb meat, they used pork fat. Because unlike Uyghur people who are Muslim, the Joseonjok people, they don't care about pork fat. It is totally okay. But Uyghur people will never do it because that's not halal. But for Koreans, that's totally okay. So instead of using lamb fat between the meat, they would use pork fat. For example, they would put small chunk of lamb meat and then pork fat, lamb meat, pork fat, lamb meat, pork fat. So that's how they made their skewer. And now that gives the meat possibly better taste for Koreans. And they also, in addition to Xinjiang spices, like a cumin seed and so on, Koreans would add their own spices and side dishes. And so that made their food more variety, gave their food more variety. And also, rather than using bamboo or willow skewers, as Uyghur people did, they started to use metal skewers, which was a real revolution, in a sense. As I said, Han Chinese also already had lamb skewer restaurants in northeastern part of China. And now this is a Han Chinese lamb skewer restaurant that I visited many years ago. And as you see, in Han Chinese restaurant, they serve lamb skewer kebab with stir-fried vegetables and the bun. Now that's the bun at the top, and they eat with lamb meat, which goes very well. And they grill the meat outdoor, not indoor, because naturally it has a lot of smell. And as I said, Joseonjok people started to use metal skewer. Now the origin is very interesting. Chinese people until 1980s were famous for riding bicycles. Now, as the Chinese economy was developing, people buy new bicycle, people by car, and now throughout the whole China, abandoned bicycle was a big headache. As you see, there was piles of bicycles, and in the place where Joseonjok were living, getting bamboo is difficult because bamboo comes from south, and Manchuria is too cold. So they can't get bamboo. So they started to use abandoned bicycle spokes here, spokes. So after they started using these bicycle spokes, now the size of skewers became standardized. Now, like many technological revolution, they come from standardization of size. The same thing happened here. And the next challenge was the smoke. Manchuria is very cold in winter, and if you are in restaurant, if you grill your meat, the restaurant will be full of smoke. You can't, and the smell would be horrible, and you can't breathe even properly. So they had to solve that problem. And Koreans, they don't like that smoke. So they started to invent new machine, new grill that can remove the smoke. And this happened in our previous lecture. I told you about the Chinese Koreans yakiniku business became easier after in Japan, the Japanese company Shimpo developed smokeless grill. So similar thing here, the smokeless grill, but this grill went one step forward. It's mechanized. And so that's the second innovation. The first innovation was the skewer, metal skewer. And second innovation was once your skewers are all standard size, then the next step, mechanization, was possible. So here, eventually, that's what they invented. Now this grill sucks all the smoke underneath of grill. So very little smoke comes out. And they made this machine that would move back and forth, which means now your meat can be grilled evenly on every side. Very interesting. And once when you finish, you see that your meat is all cooked, then you can simply move it to upper part of the grill at the top, because there is a bars. So you can put the meat there, and then you put new meat on the grill. So while the new meat is being cooked, at the top, already cooked grilled meat continuously lose some of its fat, which probably is good for your health. So now this was a real revolution. Why? Because now suddenly people were liberated from the work of grilling it with their hands. So now your hands are free. And what do you do when your hands are free? Eating more, drinking more. It's a win-win game for the owner of the restaurant. He makes more money and you can eat and you don't need to engage in this 3D work. Indeed, it's a 3D work. It's a dirty, difficult, dangerous work. So that was a business perspective. It was a revolution. As I said, they Koreanized the food. So not only they made lamb meat with pork fat, you see on the image, the white part is pork fat. And they serve Korean pickles, cucumber and radish pickle and doenjang, gochujang together with the Xinjiang spices. And also, they upmarketized the restaurant. They made their restaurant upgraded, more luxurious, clean, larger, and with big TV screens through which you can enjoy K-dramas and so on. And so this became a really revolutionized. And this Korean Chinese returnees from South Korea with money, new skills, particularly management skills, like skills in customer care, and new ideas of the table, dinner table, and all the facilities attached to it. Now the restaurant will become even better, like this. Now, in this particular restaurant, before you even sit, you already have all the sachets, small packages in which you have all kinds of spices already in. So there is no need for you to call the waiter or the attending staff, because when you open your small drawer underneath your table, everything is already neatly prepared, including huge amount of garlic and so on and so on. So that really minimizes staff's work, which means you don't need to hire too many people because everything is there. And then when your meat arrives, then another layer of drawer comes out, and now you can put your plates there. In a sense, your table extends. So while you are sitting at the main table, and the machine automatically grilling your meat, and already you have all the spices that you like, and then the side table hold the meat that you order. So it's a very handy kind of ideas. And in our next session, we will talk about how Joseonjok people, not just the lamb meat, contributed to both Chinese culinary practices and culture, and also South Korean culinary practices and culture.